Shorter found refuge and perhaps a kind of rebellion in the satisfaction that expression through the visual arts could provide. He made no secret of his fondness for fantasy, especially superheroes, and he drew them incessantly. He would become a superhero of sorts to legions of fans by painting an oil canvas. So, with that being said, that was from, by the way, Philip Lutz had written that, News from the Magazine, and that was May 9th of 2023, right after Wayne's passing. So, this week's album, Speak No Evil, by Wayne Shorter. And many other great names.
Many other great names.
1964.
Yeah, that's what it says in the magazine. But and before we dive too deep into it, on iTunes it says 66. So and that might be the Van Gelder edition that I was listening to, but even on the regular edition it still said 66. So there's a disconnect that we're going to rabbit hole down here in a minute.
Yes, there is. With that, do you just want to kick off with some music? Because this album, let me ask you this so we can talk about it. Do you have a song that you would pick, Dad?
Yes.
And before we hit record, you had said something that I want to touch on. Do you have a song?
I have an song.
And song.
I have a song. How about, I think, what'd you say? Track number 4, Speak No Evil.
Yeah.
Let's start that around 3:50.
And I'm halfway joking because right before we hit record, you said, "Can we just play all of them? Can I pick all of them?" And I think the idea was Matt said it. Let's just hit play and listen to the whole CD. Let's call it our track for the night. So speak no
there
evil.
Are so many good tracks on this album. So many. You can go anywhere on one of the tracks and find pleasure and delight.
Yeah.
Here we go. Speak No Evil. We're going to start right around 3:50. Okay, so that was a whole minute of track number 4 called Speak No Evil. So let me just say this. I have a great fondness for Freddie Hubbard. Ever since we did Oliver Nelson Week and that solo in Stolen Moments, he won my heart, and he has my heart from today forward as one of the greatest trumpet players ever. Now, obviously, Wayne, we're talking about Wayne Shorter, but I'm going to mention Freddie Hubbard a lot, and I'm being real nitpicky here with that particular solo. He flubs a couple of notes in there, right towards the beginning 12 bars. And you know what? Jazz doesn't have to be perfect. That's kind of what I'm getting at. Freddie doesn't have to be perfect. Wayne doesn't cut it and say, nope, we got to do that over, and you got to hit those notes. They leave it in there. And I think that's saying a lot about Wayne Shorter and his style of maybe band leading or conducting or his lifestyle. Saying, you know what, it's all right. Just keep rolling. We'll deal with it. And again, I'm being real nitpicky because he screwed the solo in Stolen Moments too, right? Or not the solo, the ending of Stolen Moments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Funny to me because, Dad, you had asked earlier, nobody picking Witch Hunt. In Witch Hunt, in the playing of the head, and then in his solo, he flubs a couple of notes there big time. But he is up in the high E, F, and G range, and you'll notice that he settles down into a little bit lower octave and plays. Dad, what was Speak No Evil? That was your song selection. What was it that spoke to you on that song?
It was the flow of it all. The not only the trumpet, but the way Wayne Shorter filled in and started it basically where we started it off, and it was just a real good flow to it, I guess, and a good feel to it. It draws you in to Wayne Shorter's style. So that's one of the reasons I picked it. A big reason.
Yeah. That's a great description too, because I find myself, when I listen to this album, I find myself wanting more. Give me more. I wouldn't care if the tracks were 30 minutes long. Give me more. And it brings you in, like you said, Dad. It just brings you in to the listener, just welcomes you in and says, "Come on in and join us here. What we've got. Yeah. This is what we've got. You're gonna enjoy it. I hope you enjoy it." That's a great descriptive word or descriptive phrase, Dad. It brings you in.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Drew. Let me play your clip real quick.
Okay.
You wanted song number 2, Fee Fi Fo Fum?
No, I wanted Infant Eyes.
Infant Eyes,
which is song number 5, and I wanted that to start at 3 minutes and 45 seconds and play through 4:45. One of the reasons that Infant Eyes hits me, and I'm probably going to cry when we start listening to it, but Infant Eyes speaks about his daughter. When you listen to this song unfold, you hear that both Herbie, that Wayne, and Ron, all three of them are playing very scarcely. The one note speaks volumes for each instrument, and you'll be able to hear each instrument very clearly at this passage. And then it runs into Herbie's solo about the time you'll end that. So, Infant Eyes.
All right, here we go. Can I just keep playing? I could just keep playing it because, like, we've said it. You and I joke all the time, Drew. When in doubt, it's Herbie Hancock.
Yep.
There's no doubt that plays true with your clip here. When in doubt, he's letting it breathe. What's your take? What's your take?
It's always been so much of Wayne's compositions are about decanting. Open it up, let it breathe, play a couple of notes, and extend it. Fill in when need be. And Herbie has always been the same way to me when you listen to his earlier years. Now, Herbie's heard on a lot of things. We've learned that. Mm-hmm. But with Ron, with Herbie, and with Wayne, they're all three just playing the right notes at the right time to really speak volumes. They could have played 100 notes. This could have been a faster tempo, but instead they played the right notes at the right time. One of the articles that I was reading this week calls this album, and this was from the Penguin Guide of Jazz, it is one of Shorter's most satisfying albums, and they call it a core collection album from Penguin Guide. And then there was another written in this in Wikipedia. It's almost a manifesto for his works. It's a consolidation of his compositional excellence. And that's what Infant Eyes represents to me. Coming off of, we didn't do Fee Fi Fo Fum yet, but coming off of Speak No Evil, and if you listen to the title, the opening track, Witch Hunt, and then put this together, it's kind of a little sample platter of his greatest years to come. So it's inspirational to me. Takura Nakagami. Takura, I looked it up and listened to it 10 times today. Nakagami. Takura Nakagami was his first wife, and that was for their child, Makao. No. I had it. Infant Eyes was written for that.
Okay.
I had it in front of me.
Cool.
And I lost it.
No, that's all right. That's all right. Go ahead.
Nope.
I was just going to say, do you want to play our last clip and then we can move on?
Then
or do you
we'll go
want
into the slideshow? Absolutely.
Okay, we'll play that later. Okay, so the one that I picked is song number 2, Fee Fi Fo Fum. And I'm going to start that right at about 1 minute. And yeah, just the reason I picked it, Freddie solo, again, it blows me away. And I know it's a shorter album, but anytime I get to listen to Freddie, I'm happy. So Here we go. Fee Fi Fo Fum. Is that the wrong one? Oh, turn it down. Okay. Just turn it down. I got you. Okay. All right. I know. It's a shorter album. I know.
No, you shouldn't have stopped it. That was just epic. Now, I want to say this. You keep saying it's a shorter album. I get it. But you realize that he put together core essential people for each one of these albums. Yeah. Freddie Hubbard was a core go-to trumpet player for Blue Note at this time. So when Shorter says, I got this album, they said, great, we got people. And so Blue Note suggested, or probably made it mandatory, but to have Herbie, to have Freddie, to have Ron Carter and Wayne, who in 4 short years would wind up being part of, actually, no, I lied, who had just come off of the Miles years.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But Shorter's just coming on. 2 weeks before he recorded this is when he joined Miles.
Yes.
Thanks to the magazine. I'm quoting that right from the magazine. So, and I can't imagine that the producer is going to say you have to use Freddie Hubbard and you have to use
no. But they will say we've got somebody in our pocket. It's their first call. Their will call musician. So, the cover. We showed it. We're going to talk about it in the artwork. I want to make sure that I don't forget to talk about that. So,
okay, you ready?
Slideshow. Let's run into the slideshow.
All right, here we go.
Now, typically, historically, this is where things start crashing for me. So, if all of a sudden we stop, it's because I'm running the slideshow. So,
yeah, but look how good Dad looks tonight.
He looks phenomenal, baby.
If it crashes, it crashes. Who cares?
Whatever we do, whether it crashes or not, we're going to do it to jazz.
Let's move right on to that cover slide because we could talk about Wayne all night. But let me just, my opinion of the cover. It's definitely Blue Note. It's a Blue Note cover. You can tell it is Blue Note cover right by looking at it, but it's just kind of way too subdued for me. It doesn't do a whole lot for me. It's recognizable, obviously, but it just being blue and dark the way that it is, and Takura being
Yep.
in front, which is cool. That's probably part of Wayne's philosophy. I don't need to be forefront all the time. You take forefront.
Yeah.
So, but for me, it's just okay. The artwork is just okay. Dad, what about you? What do you think?
I'm curious about the lines across Wayne's face. What's that all about?
It looks like he's hiding behind the tree branches.
Yep.
He's
Yeah.
hidden behind his wife.
Yeah, which speaks like what you said, Matt. He takes a back seat, though he is so legendary. He is so fantastic as a musician, as a not only yeah, he's just a really good. And so hiding behind that, it's really kind of who he is, isn't it?
Yeah. Maybe humble. Would that be the right word? Is you
Yes.
can be humble, and we'll talk about the documentary here in a minute. But when you watch the documentary, you do get that very humble. He's just a humble guy.
Yeah.
And- And he very, very much loved his wife,
Yes.
devotedly, wholeheartedly,
Yep.
and
And-
he's
Well, and I was going to say this is interesting because if you read the book Footprints, it talks a little bit about the time frame where Takura and he were together in the times right before they're split up and divorce. Of course, I laugh because every time I see the cover these days, I think about who Takura is currently married to, Billy D. Williams. When she left Wayne, that's when Billy D. Williams and her got married, and they're still together today. So I think about Lando Calrissian and her side by side back in '67 or '68 when they got married. So yeah, and then of course the second wife to come. There's so much to talk about Wayne Shorter.
Yeah.
But let's keep rolling. I was getting ahead
That's
of
okay.
myself.
No, that's why we're having this discussion, and the slideshow just helps us kind of flow through the conversation. The pictures on the next slide, the pictures that I picked, I wanted to get an old picture or a young picture of Wayne, and then kind of a midlife picture with him and Miles there on the bottom left, and then of course him in his older years. The eyes tell the eyes just tell it all.
Yeah.
You can tell it's Wayne Shorter just from the eyes. Cool looking cat from forever. So I love the bottom right picture of him holding the alto sax.
Yep.
He just very zen like to me.
Holding the soprano sax.
Yeah, what did I say?
You said alto.
Soprano. Okay, yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
if you're going to say it,
I know. I gotta say it.
I got a tenor sax and an alto sax player living in the house. I don't want to mess that one up.
Well, and the picture with Miles,
Historic.
historic. Miles had a great respect for Wayne, and
Huge.
that'll come up here, I think, in just a minute in the slideshow. But let's move on to the next slide. Do jazz lingo for the day. The word that I picked was arrangement. Now, Mr. Shorter, he was an arranger and a composer, so I picked arrangement in honor of him. But an arrangement is an adoption of a song, whether it's as simple as a bass line or as complex as a full orchestral score, is an arrangement. An adoption of a song is an arrangement. So you take a piece of the song, you change it just a little bit, and now it's your arrangement. Now, I don't think Wayne did that on any of the tunes on Speak No Evil. He arranged them, but he didn't steal anything from anybody to change it or make it different to make it his own. He just composed it and put it together.
And then
The arranger can take free liberty from the original piece in order to create a new one. So,
yeah, that's what I was going to touch on when you said that. Over the years, he would have taken the liberty of his own compositions and rearranged them slightly different, maybe slower, faster, using orchestras or strings, but he always grew through those songs. From what I'm gathering in the time that we've been listening to him, he was much like Miles. Let's progress and move forward. If I have to go back and play the old stuff, it's going to be very different than what you have been used to hearing, because I've got new coming out. Always new coming out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Miles said it best. If the music is stagnant, it's no good.
Yep.
So let's change it. Let's make it better. Let's move on to the next slide where you can get it. Since I was told last week that there is no such thing as Google Music anymore, I changed this slide. So our regular listeners will hear it different. This week's album can be found on iTunes, Amazon Music, Spotify, YouTube, LP, and CD. Now, I did not go to Discogs to find an LP or CD, but I'm sure that if you walk into your local CD shop or record store, you could find a used copy of Speak No Evil. I put a quote on there from Wayne. I always say that music is a small drop in the ocean of life. I was told a long time ago that your horn or whatever instrument you play is a means to be in the world.
I want to let that.
Small, yeah, let it sit.
What is 1 minute in the eyes of eternity? What is a small pebble of sand on a beach, thousands of miles long? What is, just let that sit. And your horn, that last piece of that quote, whatever instrument you play is a means to be in the world. It's your voice.
Yeah.
It's your ability to exist.
Now, we've covered some artists who I don't like their voice. Just I don't like the way they sound. And it's funny because I was going to wait and bring this up in a couple of weeks on the artists that we're going to cover in 2 weeks, but I just don't like the way that they talk.
The angry voicings of the saxophone, violent, almost negative connotations is what I hear from that. You're sending up bad vibrations.
But Wayne is the complete opposite, and he always sends up good vibrations, good karma.
Yes.
Yeah. Dad, you got anything to add?
Not at this point. No.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to.
Come on, Ron Carter. I know he's going to unload sooner or later.
No.
I'm just waiting.
Ron Carter's the bass player on Speak No Evil. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah. All right.
Ron's waiting for the right time to speak.
I know. And then he's going to drop it. He's going to drop it. Wayne was born in 1933, passed away in 2023, and that made him 89 years old. Some of the influences, what I was reading, his parents encouraged him to play the clarinet, and then at 16, he switched to the saxophone. He went to the New York University and got his music education degree. Then my man Wayne joined the military and played with Horace Silver in the U.S. Army Band. So I thought that was cool. I had to highlight that. After the military, he toured with Maynard Ferguson and then joined up with Miles Davis. Yep. So
I did show some of his early influences under his career on Wiki. Sonny Rollins, John Coltrane, and Coleman Hawkins.
Oh, Mr. Hawkins was Wayne Shorter's influence. So
we'll have to keep that in mind. How would you do that? Show me again.
Coleman Hawkins? So if he's the influence of one of my heroes, then he should be my hero, right?
He should be. We'll see what happens in a couple of weeks.
We'll see what happens. So studio and live, he's got 26. Now that's just his solo. We're just talking about solo stuff here. We'll get into some of his group work and stuff coming up in the discussion, but 26 studio and live. And then as a side man, I just put a ton. I'm not going to go through and count every single side that he's done because
it's funny that you put a ton because I put a buttload.
Right?
I was tired
Right.
of counting. I tried like 5 times. I was like, I can't scroll and count and scroll and count. I'm done.
That's exactly right. Yep. The genre that I've got that was listed on Wiki, he played modal jazz, he played crossover jazz, post bop, hard bop, jazz fusion, and third stream. Now, Speak No Evil fits right into the post bop, hard bop section. Yeah.
Yes, it does.
Okay. The album came out in 66. When I was looking at the jazz timeline that's posted on the Unconnoisseur website, it says the 60s were mainly known for free jazz, but there was other forms of jazz in the 60s. So but yeah, post bop and hard bop. Known for musician, composer, and band leader, and of course he plays the saxophone. He composes music, and he was a band leader as well. There was 12 Grammy wins. Okay, 12-time Grammy winner. 1996 Lifetime Achievement Miles Davis Award. That's one of the biggest musical awards that you can get besides a Grammy. The 2023 documentary Zero Gravity, which we'll talk about here in just a minute, because I know that you've watched it at least 2 or 3 times all the way through.
5 now.
Wow. And Dad is currently watching it, so I know that he's seen it. Have you finished it? Have you finished the documentary?
I've gone through part 1 and part 2.
Part 1 and part 2. Okay. Yep. Cool. And I've watched it only one time. I started watching episode 1. It's a 3-part documentary, three episodes, and I've made it through all the way through, and then started watching number 1 again. But 6 Degrees this week, real easy. We showed the picture of him and Miles together. So Wayne and Miles is no degrees of separation. The last slide of the slideshow, and then we'll move on to our discussion on Speak No Evil. Today in jazz history, today is December the 4th, which Thanksgiving is over, and we are moving into the Christmas time of the year, being in December. Before I move on to today in jazz history, let's tell them what's coming up in a few weeks. You want to tell them, Drew, or you want me to tell them?
Absolutely. Let's do it. Tell them.
Okay. So when Drew and I started our journey, we came to this time of the year, and we decided not to take a break, but to do something different for a week and do our favorite Christmas albums, our top 5 Christmas jazz albums that I would pick 5 and he would pick 5, and we exchanged lists. And then on Christmas Day, I listened to his 5 and he listened to my 5. So we just want to bring this to the forefront of the show tonight, because it is December. Start putting your list together. Start sending us recommendations of what you'd like us to talk about for our Christmas challenge 2024. So one of the ones that I brought to the Christmas challenge last year was Stan Kenton's A Merry Christmas. I'm a huge big band fan anyway. So Stan Kenton, Merry Christmas. It was just one of the ones that I had on my list. Drew, you sent some bangers on your list. And yeah, so just be thinking about your top 5 Christmas albums and we'd like to stay in the jazz category. Doesn't necessarily have to be, but I'm not going to play A Very Special Christmas from Mariah Carey, because I'm already going to have listened to it 50 times from my wife. Right?
Let me interject something here.
Please.
Sure.
Whatever you do it to jazz. Well, it's like 55 degrees here today. And so spectacular day for a bike ride. And so I had jazz in my ears, and I'm listening to Oliver Nelson, and somehow on Spotify, it jumps down and over and around and about. The last half of my ride, I'm listening to jazz Christmas music that I am definitely an unconnoisseur, because I think that's my very first exposure to jazz Christmas or Christmas jazz music. It kind of, it was a little unsettling, or just I couldn't quite get into it. But I'm sure as we move forward and I listen to more of it, there will be some that I can really appreciate. At least I'm hopeful.
There will be.
There will be. And you know what? Maybe I'll send you my 5 from last year, and Drew can send you his 5 from last year, so that you can check out our
Yep.
the top ones that we picked last year. And then when we do the reveal, and I do my new 5 and you do your new 5, and Dad, you can have 5 to talk about as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I'm just going to go ahead and put a spoiler out there for our list. Now, Christmas albums jazz may not require Christmas jingle of jazz. I'm not thinking about Harry Connick Jr.'s Christmas Jingle Bell Sleigh Ride Hallmark movie kind of stuff, but based on an Instagram post, I see you, Matt, an Instagram post that I saw last year at this time, I'm going to challenge you with Kamasi Washington, Harmony of Difference. Tell me that does not have the cinnamon and spice of Christmas. When you listen to that album, tell me it could not be a Christmas album. Die Hard is it a Christmas movie?
It is. It is a Christmas movie.
So Harmony of Difference could be a Christmas. Just saying. I'll send you the link to that. I'll put it up on screen right now. You can see the cover. Kamasi, baby. Kamasi.
So yeah, that's what's coming up. Let's get back to today in jazz history, December the 4th. Guitarist Jimmy Hall was born in 1930. In 1933, Duke Ellington records Daybreak Express. Now, I pulled up Daybreak Express last night while I was putting the slideshow together. Absolutely loved it. The Duke, second to none, the greatest. The quote from Wayne Shorter that I found for this slide, I really love it because it kind of sums up Miles to a T. When you play with Miles, you're on your own. It's up to you to decide what to contribute.
Yep.
It's up to you. He's going to do his own thing, but he expects you to do your thing too and contribute.
Mm-hmm. So, is that a quote or an quote?
And quote.
And quote.
Now, I want to comment the picture on the bottom here.
Uh-huh.
As a photographer watching Zero Gravity and how they got to this picture and the studio time that they had with Mr. Shorter, I love the style. I loved how they did what they did, but more importantly, you can see the look on his face, and that's how I see him playing his music. It's not a blank stare. It's a stare of all of the things that aren't the camera that are going on in that moment. There's so much that he's seeing. And when you watch the documentary Zero Gravity and you see this photo shoot taking place, there's so many thousands of things happening to get that one picture. And that seals the deal. That picture as a photographer to me is just, it sums it up. It's beautiful.
Now, if I remember correctly in the documentary, it did state that he didn't like getting his picture taken, didn't like to sit down for things like this. So
No.
I'm picturing a 4-year-old trying to sit and lap, getting his picture taken, and
Yeah.
you know, doing his squirming, and he wants to get off and get his candy cane and move about. Not that Wayne is a 4-year-old, but he just didn't like this kind of deal. And so for them to capture that picture,
He didn't want to be in the center. He never did. Right. Going back to the cover, I just want to be here. Let me play my thing. Let me do my thing. But to address it, I almost get the perception that he is a 4-year-old. His imagination runs rampant. He's a little kid inside. And so to me, getting the wiggles out, I don't want to be the center of attention. That means I'm in trouble. That means somebody's going to come pinch my cheek and, oh, aren't you an adorable, sweet little baby? Leave me alone and let me do.
Rosie's going to greet you at the door and
oh, Lord help us all. Merry Christmas. So I get that perception from him throughout. You know, we've done this now for a year, and I have fallen in love with his compositions and his style, his playing, his voicing on everything, and the way in which he interacted with so many people. From Carlos Santana to Joni Mitchell, Esperanza Spalding. In the documentary, you see Danilo Perez and how he works with them, but how he worked with Herbie and Freddie and everybody. He's got this...
Joe Zawinul.
Joe Zawinul. in Weather Report, and of course Jocko. Then too, you got a kid that wants to be front and center, and Wayne just says, "That's cool. I'll write some stuff for you, and you go play your thing. I'm going to grab my soprano and just blow my horn."
Right.
The idea of that though is just so impressive to me, how he balanced just that chill life. Really did.
I found two additional words that someone described Wayne. One of the words was enigmatic.
Okay.
Yes.
I had to look it up. And the definition is difficult to understand. And the other word was intrepid. There was a fearlessness and an adventuresomeness about Wayne Shorter. So that might help to explain or describe how he took a back seat, so to speak. Does that make sense?
It does. I'm still wrapping my brain around it.
Yeah.
Enigmatic was the term. Enigmatic.
Enigmatic and intrepid.
Intrepid.
So difficult to understand. And if you look in his eyes, and especially during the documentary, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Because it's not the way he did or did not articulate himself, but it's the look that he had that was difficult. Plus, but in addition, there's a fearlessness, and he did not hesitate to adventure into other styles or other ways of interpreting his music and his compositions. To me, that explains a lot about Wayne Shorter.
Well, and it's interesting because in the documentary and of course in the book Footprints, it talks about the day that Miles in the late 80s grabs a hold of Wayne Shorter on stage or after behind stage. And he says, it's time. The world needs to know who you are. And that was in the late 80s. And Miles had always just been chill, always done his thing. But you see a clip of it, you hear it in documentaries, you see it in the book and read it in the book, and you think, what does that really mean? Miles understood him very, very well. And you read that in the book Footprints by Michelle Mercer, is that their deep connection was a very unique one from the very beginning. And then, of course, Herbie and Wayne shared some of that same connection through Buddhism and their chanting. Their family lives revolved around some of that simplicity of life. So there were a couple of people that did. And so that intrepid or enigmatic, wow.
Yeah. Almost to a T. Almost to a T. Yeah. Hard to understand.
There he goes, Ron Carter dropping the notes.
Coming in right where we need him.
Man. Well, it's interesting because one of the groups that he did 4 albums with, 1977 through 79, was VSOP. And VSOP is an abbreviation or an insignia for cognac. In Wayne's earlier years, he used to love to drink his cognac. And VSOP in the cognac label, very superior old pale. And if you go back to the VSOP albums with Wayne Shorter and look who is on them, it's the same crew. It is the same crew. And so it's.
So why did he rebrand? Do you know? If it's the same crew with VSOP, why didn't he just?
The VSOP members: Herbie, Tony Williams, Freddie Hubbard, Ron Carter. It's essentially this team right here. But VSOP came back. They were playing that Wayne music. He did the Miles music. He did the tribute album with Ronnie Williams later, Miles's guy. But VSOP was that group. However, keyboards and synthesizers with the vocals was Herbie. Wayne was on then the tenor sax, but mostly the soprano sax. I forget what year it was. It was pretty much, I wrote it down somewhere. He stopped playing the tenor and started playing the soprano sax. And so I think that was part of it. This group came together at the Newport Jazz Festival in '76.
Okay.
And so it was the reunited great quintet of quintet, the second great quintet.
Yeah.
The reunited Miles Davis quintet. And of course, Freddie Hubbard instead of Miles Davis. So
Right.
very superior Old Pale. And I think that was probably a tribute as much as anything to me listening to those albums from VSOP.
Dad, let me ask you, did you listen to any other Wayne Shorter besides Speak No Evil this week? Did you listen to any other albums?
There was some other tracks that I listened to. I don't remember what they were off the top of my head, but
Okay.
yeah.
Because the only reason I say that is because I'm looking at his discography, and down near the bottom in 1988, he played with Carlos Santana at the Montreux Jazz Festival, and that was from 1988.
Okay.
So you're a big Carlos Santana fan.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make you a bigger Wayne Shorter fan, get you to listen to him and Carlos together at
Okay.
Montreux Jazz Fest 1988.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
now,
That
Speak
was-
No
And that
Yeah.
was also the group called Meganova,
Meganova. Yep.
2016. Shorter, Carlos Santana, and Herbie Hancock.
Yep.
And it included the supergroup bassist, Marcus Miller, who had played with Miles Davis in the late 80s.
I did listen to, going back to that, I listened to one of the pieces that he did with Steely Dan.
Yes.
Asia.
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 Yeah. Yeah. It was what? A fusion of jazz and rock,
Mm-hmm.
which you could expect from Steely Dan, right?
Man, yeah.
Kind of Wayne Shorter too.
Yeah.
I was going to say, kind of Wayne Shorter. Let's go to Weather Report.
Yeah.
For today's rock and roll, let's go to Weather Report. Can I get a Jacko on the forecast?
That's funny because, we said we'd talk about Weather Report, and being a co-founder of this side project, I'd call it, but then it didn't stay a side project. It became a main thing. In '79 they won the Grammy for the song 830, or was that for the album? No, I think it was for the song 830. They won a Grammy.
Yeah.
So, again, you've got an all-star lineup. Joe Zawinul on the electric piano. You got Wayne Shorter. We talked about Herbie playing on left channel, and who else was on the mid channel, and someone else was on the right channel.
Yeah, we're currently working through that album. We'll talk about it in the morning. Free Jazz.
Yeah, free jazz. Yeah. So you got an all-star. You got an all-star lineup. I'm mixing my weeks together,
Yeah.
aren't I? Whoops. But Weather Report and Dad, I think you dig Weather Report. At least I hope you do, because maybe they're going to be coming up. I don't know, but you're gonna come.
Weather Report was a group from '71 to '86, and that was right in the jazz fusion, that rock jazz fusion time. And it brought a lot of attention to the board. And it was a side project. It ended up carrying for 15 years.
Yeah.
It kept him busy.
So I have an overarching question. If there is anywhere a timeline of how jazz artists are performing in the same frame of time, you know what I'm saying? So from these years to this year, and here comes another artist who's playing this period of time to that period of time, and how much overlap is there between the performers? Do you know what I'm saying?
I do. And Matt's got the book right there with a little bit of that information.
Oh, good.
It's going to be difficult to see, but this is what Drew and I started with: is how to listen to jazz.
Okay.
I'm back up from the microphone a minute.
That's all right. Joe Coker wrote the book, How to Listen to Jazz.
How to Listen to Jazz. And on one of the very, very last pages of the book, you're not going to be able to see it. I'll get you a copy, or I'll even loan you the book. But it starts with, the, what is it, 1800s, 1870, and it's got names. And then it goes down throughout the years with the mega names in jazz history.
Wow.
So I'll bring you the book over and let you look at it.
And Matt, that's a good point. We've also come across some PDFs with time history lines. I'll put a link to those on the website so that we have the
jazz history timeline is on the Unconnoisseur website. So that's what I was referring to earlier. Is I checked the timeline for this album, and again, it didn't fit with what timeline is on the website. But yeah, this is a great helped us get started. This list of a timeline. Dad, I'll bring you the book over.
Okay.
And those were a great find when we first started this, to be able to read through that book and just understand how to listen to jazz. What are you listening for? Is it a sophisticated music that is difficult? And it can be difficult because you have to commit to listening. And when you begin to listen, much like you talked about on your special episode about listening, the power of that, to sit and listen, you start to hear these unique things. You start to hear the difference between an alto or a soprano or a tenor. You start to hear the difference between a flugelhorn and a trumpet. You start to hear a difference between Freddie Hubbard style or Clifford Brown style or Booker Little style in comparison to Fats Navarro. And then you definitely know when you hear Chet Baker playing. So there's those elements that when you're really listening, and then by time frame, listening to how the progression. We did Count Basie last week in the 30s. Now we're talking about an album from the 60s, and we've got so much music from 70s, 80s, 90s. This week, Matt, since we didn't get into our week in music, I went into a couple of albums, and you'll appreciate one. I will not announce it, but it had to do with F Your Feelings. I listened to a lot of Robert Glasper this week.
Wow.
And just double booked again. And of course, Black Radio 1 and 2, which there's so much great jazz and trying to figure out that time frame. Thanks for asking that question, Dad. There is some resources.
And I was just going to point out again, we haven't talked about How to Listen to Jazz by Coker in several months, in several episodes. So this is also where we got our guide on how we kind of rate the album, the criteria for rating the album, the craftsmanship, the awareness, the creativity, the spirit of the album. And then finally, we added our own, how does it make us feel, the emotion of the album. And we sit here and we talk about artists week in and week out and albums week in and week out. And sometimes we even forget to bring that up on the episode, the craftsmanship and the awareness. Now, there's no doubt that Wayne, his craftsmanship was amazing. He was the Pinocchio builder of wooden dummies. I mean, he could turn a music into a living creature if he put his mind to it. He probably could. So his craftsmanship was there. It's a great question, Dad. Thanks for.
It's also interesting as we're discussing that, what you just said, because when I read the titles of some of the tracks, I'm thinking, where do they come up with the titles for these? So I asked Dr. Google, I said, what's the rubric of jazz music, of jazz band? Okay. And see if this doesn't, resonate with you guys. The rubric evaluates jazz band performances on 5 criteria: style and interpretation, intonation accuracy, rhythm accuracy, tone quality, and then balance and blend.
So you said style, intonation, rhythm,
tone, and balance.
Okay. All right. That leads me, that final one, the balance leads me to my next talking point.
Good.
And you asked us and I asked you before we started recording, did you listen to the Rudy Van Gelder edition or to the original edition from Blue Note? And the reason why I asked you that is because you will find better balance on the RVG edition. Now, Drew, throughout our journey, there's been several albums that have come up that's got the original Blue Note recording or original not ECM, but another label, and then Rudy Van Gelder redoes it better. He mixes it and masters it better than the original. So if I've got my choice to listen to an original or an RVG edition, now granted, I'm probably going to listen to the original first, but then I'm going to put RVG edition in my ear and hear the difference between the balance of the recording, not necessarily the musicians, but of the recording itself. Yep. So the RVG edition, Rudy Van Gelder had his own studio, and a lot of the musicians wanted him to record their music just because he made it sound.
A lot of musicians, but Blue Note record label, Prestige, Impulse, Verve, and CTI. All of those record labels went to Rudy Van Gelder Studios in Inglewood Cliffs, New Jersey, to get their music recorded. He was precision, and I'm going to quote this wrong, but basically, as a kid, he built a recording studio in his mom and dad's house. Mom and dad were tired of all the musicians coming to the house smoking in the living room, so he requested that they build him a house so he can move out of their house. So they built a studio/house for him to move into, which became the studio. You would go to his studio, and then the house was next door upstairs. But Rudy was brilliant. Operated from 61 to 2016. So very long time that he was the jazz go-to for records.
Mm-hmm. So
the sound, we've come to love and appreciate that. There was only one bass player that we know of right now that refused to have RVG do his stuff.
Touch his music, right. But I like, and sorry for that sidetrack, I like the other ones that you read off too. The style, the jazz style, the intonation.
Oh, yeah.
Again, sometimes the intonation, the voicing of the instruments, you don't care for the lead. Steve Coleman for me. You just don't like their voice, the rhythm and the tone. So,
and the balance, that's interesting as well. How do you balance? And that goes back to Infant Eyes for me. When we listened to that clip early on, you hear the balance between the musicians. They had respect enough for each other to let them do their things.
Yeah.
And at the same time, they blended very well together, didn't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about Wayne, but we haven't talked a lot about Speak No Evil. We've heard clips. We've done the slideshow. What was your overall thoughts on Speak No Evil?
Hey, Dad, I'm going to ask you this. How did the album make you feel?
I've got to say, when I first started listening to it, I was not moved. It did not stir me. It did not really move me. But the more I listened to it, the more I got into it, the more I began to appreciate the music, the musicians, the interpretation, the flow of it, that had a lot of meaning. Every one of the tracks had meaning. And of course, because I was watching and had watched parts of the
Zero Gravity.
Yes. Then it made much more sense, or made a greater impact on me. So this is one that I could go back to and would go back to. Yeah.
But Wayne's got a ton of other albums that you should go to. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But if the only album you came back to was Speak No Evil, you'd be good to go.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. Now, I loved Speak No Evil. I did. We'll rate it here in just a few minutes. I absolutely loved it. But for me, Alegria, I just really got into Alegria all day long. It's his release in 2003. Now, Speak No Evil was his sixth solo release. Allegria was released much, much later in 2003.
Yeah.
And actually, on the wiki page, there's a whole kind of paragraph dedicated just to Allegria. It was his first studio album in 10 years. He did receive the Grammy Award in 2004 for Best Jazz Instrumental Album for Allegria. Pianist Brad Meldew played on Allegria. So
I got goosebumps.
yeah, I'm just saying, as much as I love Speak No Evil, Allegria for me just hit even harder. And
Oh, yeah.
and it's that whole rabbit hole thing. Let's listen to as much as we can from this artist this week and see if there's anything that we can compare Speak No Evil to. I'm not sure there is anything to compare it to, but man, you start diving into Wayne, and you could just get lost in his music altogether. And it's not
from beginning to end.
Yes.
That's one thing that I would have to say about Wayne, and this particular album sums it up. It's a little nugget of everything that he had done, and will do coming forward. But you begin to realize what his compositions are going to sound like. You can tell a weather report composition by Wayne versus by Joe Zawinul. So you can begin to hear Wayne's fingerprints on all of the music that he's written or performed. And to me, this is a little capture of it. It's a little snippet of some of his greatest works to come. So the album moved me. I will go back to it over and over and over again. But so much other great stuff by Wayne. The other one, Ephigenia, in 2013 was an orchestral piece. Esperanza Spalding was instrumental in that as well. And so here he is writing towards the end of his years, 5 years before his passing, so it wasn't at the end then, but an orchestral piece. All of it leading up to From Infant Eyes or Witch Hunt to that day when it all comes together. And that's, I think the documentary Zero Gravity allows you to see into the world of Wayne. And there's a whole new respect. And Matt, you say it all the time, and I've been using the phrase, you got to go there to know there. And once you begin to understand who the musician is, where they're coming from, it all unfolds like dominoes. It all falls down. And I thought about that with Wayne this week. I just blown away by the album.
Yeah, blown away. So you ready to rate?
I'm going to start.
Okay.
I gave this that week a 9.5. That was now almost a year ago, and I would have leveled it off at the highest that we could. We don't change it, so 9.5.
Okay, well, I have a confession to make because I did not put a score on my notes, and I had to go to the website today to find out what I rated Speak No Evil. The reason I bring it up is because I really shouldn't even put a score. I mean, if we could go to 100, my score would be 1,000. But
true that.
But my score that I gave him this week was a 9 out of 10, and it must have been. I don't know what was going on this week. I didn't take many notes about myself this week. Why I gave it a 9 instead of straight up just going all the way to 10.
Yeah,
but
I kind of wondered that too. Why I didn't just rate it there.
Well, and because we're biting off bigger chunks of music now, and we come to appreciate Wayne a little bit more. I think.
Oh yeah.
A year ago, okay, it's Wayne Shorter, big deal, blah 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 blah. But then, you, like you said, you start watching the documentary, you start reading his book, you dive into who he was, and you realize, oh dang, we didn't bix him by any means, but
no,
but it should have been a straight up 10. And again, we don't change our score. Dad, what about you?
Like I said earlier, when I first started listening to it, I thought this is like a 7.5 maybe.
Okay.
And then the more I listened to it, again, the more I appreciated his style and his ability. So I'm going to settle on an 8.5.
Nice. Okay. Good.
Love that.
That's a great unconnoisseur score. It really, really is. And again, because are you keeping track of your own scores, Dad? You keeping track?
In fact, I just wrote down this one.
Okay, no, that's fine. The reason that I like keeping track is because I look at my list every day. If I have trouble picking something, I want to go to my 10s and my 9s first. And that's the only reason I'm saying that. So start keeping track of how you like it, rate it, and then when you do want to listen to something, you can look through your list.
Yeah.
Heck, even if you marked it on your magazine page and go turn through the magazine to find something that you want to listen to. Oh, I gave this one a 9. I better let's listen to that again. Or start with your 6s. Why did I rate it a 6? Let's listen to it again.
Or
and see if
when in doubt, Journey to the Urge Within or Modern Day Jazz. When in doubt, just throw on some Courtney Pine and be done.
Come on now. When in doubt, let's throw on Herbie Hancock.
Charles Lloyd 8. This last week, brother, I got to tell you all this. I listened to the Cone concert, I don't know, 20 times.
Yeah.
It was a meditative place for me. I want to finish with this. June 1966, the album was released. This is Speak No Evil, but it was recorded in 1964.
That's why it's
So
different.
the two different dates. It was December 64 recorded, June 66 released.
Wonder why they waited so long.
I kind of wonder if it was a timing of Miles' quartet, Blue Note, something going on with Freddie. I don't know. But it could have been any one of those things.
Maybe Wayne told Freddie to go back in the studio and re-record his solo so he didn't flub it up. And
Now, he probably said, go flub it up so I sound better.
And Freddie said, "Oh man, I'll get to it when I get to it. I'm busy." And then never got back. And Wayne finally said, "Time to release the album." Flubbed it up.
Funny.
So, all right. So great scores. Any last thoughts on Speak No Evil?
Not for me.
No.
Well, wait, I'm sorry. Yes. Because Infant Eyes, that's one of them that I would have chosen to listen to. I would have started at 2 minutes and 30 seconds, but I didn't get a choice in that. I can only choose one.
Right.
But there was a melancholy about it. There was a sadness, not depressed, but like Drew, like you said, it kind of fell on the time of his daughter's death. So
You going to play it anyways?
We'll just play it in the background. You just keep talking.
so I like that. I listened to that several times.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sweet,
That's Infant Eyes.
sweet, odious. Is that a word? Check the tone.
For me, Speak No Evil is one of those golden nuggets that you didn't realize how good it was until you've dug it up, right? We've listened to it, but it's still covered in dirt and it's still unknown what you really got until you take it back and you unpack it, you clean it off. You realize, wow, I've got a nugget here. This is a big nugget of goodness, of gold.
Yeah.
So that's, for me, that's Speak No Evil. Final thoughts, Drew?
No, I had to go there for a moment. That was written for Makeo, his daughter, Infant Eyes.
Yeah.
And in the documentary, they talk a little bit more about that. But my final notes, no. It is, Penguin Guide said it, it's a core collection album. And I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah.
If you're going to get into jazz, this is a must-have album.
Right. Okay, cool. Let's talk about next week's artist.
Can I mention a couple things first?
Yes.
Sure, absolutely.
I read that Wayne Shorter liked three things. Okay, three things. I'm sure you can guess the first one.
Cognac. Oh, sorry.
Jazz music.
He liked music. Okay. He liked sci-fi. And he was brought up with comic books. He loved comic books. Those three things kind of identify him, basically.
Well, and I don't want to give anything away that you're going to be seeing in the episode 3, but he likes his fairies too.
Okay.
So
Very imaginative world.
Very imaginative world, and it's the funniest story. What it was shorter, right? With the sci-fi. I'm thinking of the right story, right?
I think so, yes.
Where he was telling somebody that he had to go watch this sci-fi movie.
Danilo Perez.
Yeah, he was talking to Danilo Perez to say, "Oh, you got to check this. I was watching this movie last night before I went to sleep. You got to go check this." And it was the worst sci-fi movie ever. And Perez comes back and says, "Man, why'd you make me watch that piece of crap?" And oh well, at 8 minutes and 14 seconds, there was that music clip in there. Man, that was cool. He made me watch the whole movie.
Made him watch the whole movie for that little moment. Yeah, you're right. That's what he was into.
Yeah.
Who called him Mr. Gone? Somebody referred to him
he
as
and
Mr.
his brother. We'll just keep the episode running. We're running late, y'all, but we're having fun now. Mr. Gone, when you read the book Footprints, and it talks a little bit about Alan Shorter in the documentary, but in the book it paints a real big picture. He and his brother were weirdos, to the point where they carried their instruments around and they wore trench coats and hats and they pulled their collars up. It was their way of walking in these 6-foot-long trench coats when they were 5 foot tall. He had this weird thing. He was always mentally gone. He had checked out. So somebody in his earlier years called him Mr. Gone. When he carried his trumpet to and from school at the Arts Academy, he had Mr. Gone painted on the side of it. He was a weirdo. And then when he started playing the hard bop in Newark, they called him the Newark Flash because he played the things so fast, he moved like Flash Gordon. But Mr. Gone because he was a weirdo.
Well, and also it's funny because I did remember reading that, but then that became the title of a Weather Report album, Mr. Gone.
Yes.
So he titled that after himself.
One other bit of news, okay? The saxophones were banned in many churches. In 1914, saxophones were banned in the Vatican. Couldn't play them. Couldn't use a saxophone to play any music, especially in churches. That's kind of weird. I mean, really strange to me, but because it reflected on what it corresponds to, apparently.
Yeah. Yeah, you and I have had that discussion over and over again, the history of jazz and how it started, and then telling your mom you're going to go play in church when in fact you're going to play in the brothel.
Jelly Roll Morton.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. I wonder if it had less to do with the jazz 1914. Is that what you said, 1914?
Vatican,
I think it had less to do with that than probably the manufacturer. I wonder if there was something about timing. I'm thinking that the wars, there may have been some issue with Adolph Sax building those instruments, or maybe it was just too loud of an instrument.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to look at when Adolph Sax started building some of those things, because it would have been 30 or 40 years prior. He was building the saxophones, but maybe it could have. I'll dig into that.
Please do.
So you said that you had some other music in your ear this week as well. I just want to tell you, I had some Ilya Serov in my ear this week as well.
Ooh.
Yeah, the jazzophone was interesting to me this week. Because of the artist that we're doing on our personal journey. I had some Keith Jarrett and Charlie Hayden in my ear. I had Charlie Hayden and Gonzalo Reblanca in my ear. I had some Charlie Hayden and Pat Metheny in my ear. it was a good week. It was a good week in music. Very good week. So, okay. Final thoughts. We're done?
Well, I'm going to add this. You ready?
Yep.
Yes, the Vatican banned the saxophone in 1903, and the ban is still in place. The ban was issued by Pope Pius X in a document called the Trial something, which was Italian for among concerns. The Vatican also called the saxophone the devil's horn.
I wonder if they call a jazzophone trumpet the devil's horn.
Well, the Nazis banned the saxophone as an instrument of American jungle music. The Soviet 1930s banned it, persecuted the saxophone. So, wow, it is a rebellious instrument.
Yeah.
You go to hell if you play the saxophone.
Well, then in that case, our next week's artist, he's in trouble.
Oh, he's in deep doo-doo.
Doo-doo. So,
who is it?
all right, here we go. Next week, put in your ears. This is number 54. And again, we're using the Jazzwise magazine top 100 albums that shook the world from 2022. Next week's artist, number 54, John Coltrane, and the album is Ascension. It was on the Impulse label on LP and CD. It was recorded in 1965. It also has Freddie Hubbard and McCoy Tyner on the piano. It's got Art Davis and Jimmy Garrison on the bass, Elvin Jones on the drums, Pharoah Sanders, of course, Coltrane, and Archie Shepp on tenor sax. So we're talking another big lineup of artists here. And I won't give too much away, but this is Coltrane's ascension into a free jazz era. So I don't want to say he hits a brick wall, but he realizes maybe it's not for me.
Well,
So-
I will say this, Matt, because I'm going to put this out here before we get to the episode next week. Free jazz, I hope the album was free. That was my note for the album next week. Just saying. It may not have been rated high on our Shake the World tour, but I hope it's free.
Dad, it's going to be a rough one for you to put in your ears. I'm
Okay.
just warning you. But we want a fair score.
Okay.
It's not terrible, but it is on the free side. So you're going to have to, yeah.
And I would have to say this. When it comes, we'll talk about free jazz next week, but when you think about breaking chains that bind, music was the output. Music was the creative freedom. And when you start to say this is what jazz should sound like, somebody's got to break free. And I think that's free jazz to me. Closing note, and then we'll say goodbye.
Okay.
Ladies' Home Journal wrote, the saxophone makes it hard to distinguish for listeners between right and wrong. That's why all the bands of saxophones were out there. It
Makes it hard to decide.
to distinguish between right and wrong. Saxophone.
Yeah.
Let's see what John Coltrane brings to the table for right or wrong when he
Okay.
plays Ascension.
Great. Drew, why don't you tell them where they can find us?
As always, baby, you can find us at theunconnoisseur.com on the web. You can also find us on YouTube where you're at right now with us. I don't have my slide up, so I'm just going to wing it.
Let's wing it, baby.
You can go to the website. You can check us out right here on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, and iTunes for the podcast. Matt's killing stuff. Are you doing stuff on TikTok? Because I'm not doing any shorts on YouTube. So
I haven't
we're
done a
out on
TikTok.
those. We're
I
there.
haven't done a TikTok, but we're there.
But we're there, so you can find us there in the event of. And keep dropping the comments week after week. I may be a little bit slow in getting to them. We did have one comment this past week about the Thick as Thieves. What was that, a Thelonious Monk song at the end? And it was not. I did put a comment in response to where you can find that album and who it was. So keep dropping the comments. We appreciate it. Please, for everybody watching this on YouTube, hit like, subscribe, and hit the bell next to the subscribe button so that you get notified as soon as it comes out. Now, every Wednesday morning, we're dropping those. So by 2 days from now, you'll be seeing Thelonious Monk, but that's irrelevant to today's conversation. Look forward to that.
All right. Hey, have a great week. John Coltrane Ascension in your ears.
Off we go.